we're in a space right now, I think in 2024, where you could get canceled almost any second. As a brand, you say the wrong thing on social, whatever it is, there's an opportunity, there's a risk. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Beyond Social podcast. I'm Reggie, one of your hosts. This is a show where we go behind the scenes on how marketers do amazing things and how we are building a tool to help those marketers. Myself and Vitaly today are talking about some of the ways that marketing agencies, marketers, freelance solopreneurs could expand their revenue by offering a couple more things that in partnership with an SMM tool could really help to expand your core offering. So Vitaly, I know that we were chatting before this about there's so many different elements of functionality and in general, so many different things that we can add value to the client, right? So us providing value to the agency or to the marketer. But beyond that, what are some of the things that we were thinking through that could help them to expand, right? Whether it's boosting, whatever that is.
I think when it comes to marketing agencies, right, you have the bigger agencies that already are offering quite a few services to their customers, everything from branding to, you have the copywriting, you have ad production, videography, you have a number of sort of services already. In our conversations today, we're going to focus on the social media management side of sort of marketing, where majority of services are sort of related to content production. You have your social media managers and agencies offering social media management to brands and companies out there. And the primary offering is content and creating content on a regular basis, whether it's imagery, videos, whatever the content is. And then end of the month, typically an agency would, or a social media manager would go out and, generate a report as a way of sort of proving the value to their customer. Typical revenue around that is to do with how many posts you do on a monthly basis, what kind of posts, are these videos, are these images, how much community management you do on behalf of the customer. And again, the reporting at the end of the month is really meant to solidify in your customer's sort of perspective the value of your work. Right. So if you can show them the growth in their following and in engagement across the networks, then you're good and safe and you'll have continued business. And again, I also want to kind of talk about the fact that we are really here to help agencies maintain customers, right? And making sure the customers don't fall off just because there was a slower month on TikTok or something. It's really, really important. So end of the month reports is part of the game. So content, engagement through some sort of an inbox, community management of sorts, and also the reporting is something that is part of pretty much every social media management gig in existence today.
Yeah. And I think beyond that, right, like you mentioned that, right? Like maybe there's a slow month on TikTok or on Instagram for them. I think one of the things that we want to talk about is how do we offset that, but at the same time, offer an additional offering for that marketer, for that agency, right? Or I guess more of the marketer, so that in that slow month, you can offset that, right? So let's talk a little bit about boosting. Can we kind of expand on that? I know that we look at some SMM tools and they allow you to basically, you're scheduling your organic posts, going out to TikTok, to Instagram, to Facebook, wherever that is. And at the same time, you can pre-schedule a boost, right? You've got your ad account, a budget, a couple bucks a day, whatever that might be. Now that becomes an opportunity for you to start offering that, another package to the customer where we're going to manage your boosting.
Yeah, so the ad spend management is a fairly large sort of area, and it typically comes with needing to have enough expertise how to set up ads on all these different platforms. And it's complex enough of a subject to where some networks like Facebook, like Meta, they offer certifications on the subject. So it's quite challenging in certain cases to kind of become an expert. For that reason, maybe the broader ad spend management and ad management is something maybe outside of the scope of today's conversation, because again, it's a vast subject. However, just like you said, augmenting performance, marketing performance with boosting, and boosting is sort of an easier way of getting the benefit of the ads without necessarily going all in with ad management. So that is something that the agency could indeed, or a social media manager could indeed offer to the clients with much more ease than, say, doing a full out, like, we're going to manage your ads. And that, just like you said, as simple as you set up the organic post, and you then simply allocate a budget. And mind you, these budgets that could be tiny. They could be $5, they could be $10, but they would have a very visible impact on your content, because a lot of the networks today are sort of pay to play environments.
Right.
And you are competing with a lot of ad spend out there. And as great as your content is, it's still going to most likely underperform, especially for smaller brands that don't have that much sort of presence in the space. So boosting is advantageous now for a few reasons for you, sort of our agency or social media manager. First of all, your content begins to perform better. So in the eyes of your client, you are a superstar, basically. You're all of a sudden double, engagement or impressions. It's a tiny spend for your customer, meaning that you're not asking them to, quadruple their budgets or, 10x their budgets. Although I think it's an acquired taste. So once they kind of get hooked on seeing what $5 gives them, all of a sudden, maybe there's a bigger spend. And third, this is now an extra service that you are providing. In a lot of cases, what I've seen personally is that ad agencies, typically they charge based on it's a percentage of the ad spend. So if you are spending $100,000 on behalf of a customer, there is a negotiated percentage of that. That's sort of your take. But there are a lot of ways to slice and dice this. So you can have a fixed fee, especially if these are smaller $5 kind of increments. But again, you look better. Your client is not sort of spending too much money, and you could charge to oversee all of that, because there'll still be some ad accounts needing to be connected and things like that. So, but it's one setup to you. There is no extra step. It doesn't take any extra time.
Right.
But it is an extra billable item for you to add to your customer's invoice at the end of the month.
I mean, there may be a little bit of setup on the creating ad accounts, especially if the client doesn't have, the TikTok and the X and all of that. And mind you, having a tool that helps you to boost, so you're not having to go to X after you post and then to Facebook and then to Instagram and then to TikTok. That's probably helpful as well. But on that boosting side, before we kind of shift gears, the whole idea about the client goes to you is to solve a problem, is to drive a business result. And so exactly augmenting some of the performance, whether it's, hey, the goal is we want to get in front of 100,000 eyeballs every month, or we want to increase our, share of whatever, our audience size, our engagement rate, right? Definitely boosting can augment that. I think in another way that I've seen some agencies recently, even just marketers in general, is starting to take over the management of bio link pages for brands, for local businesses. And it's helpful in a couple of different ways. Well, one, right, the whole goal here is you add another billable item, right? Sure. You're able to provide value to your customer in the sense that you're creating a microsite, a landing page for them with the top links. I'm sure everybody listening probably already knows what a bio link page is. But at the end of it, you get to look into features like, let's say, if you're boosting posts, right? Now I can tie in the Meta pixel, right? I can put in the Google Analytics script. And so now I'm getting more results in other areas. But at the same time, you're being able to showcase in those reports the value. Hey, now we have a Google Analytics report that shows us people who went from our Instagram account to our bio link page and then ultimately purchase something on the website, right? So now we're able to kind of tie in that user journey and really communicate that value to them, which could be very, very helpful.
Yeah, in many ways, if you are managing a certain number of social profiles for your customers, let's say you're doing, I don't know, a handful, Twitter or X, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, adding a link in bio, just even one page, just adds that yet an additional profile. So if you are somehow offering your services based on a number of social profiles you manage, all of a sudden you have like one extra profile to manage. So say that adds like 20% to your effort and therefore 20% to your service fee as well. But that is assuming that that particular customer just needs one link in bio page. It's possible that the customer has employees that need it. Let's say it's a real estate organization. That could mean that every one of the employees might need a link in bio page. And again, we're sort of assuming that listeners know what a link in bio page. In the case when you don't, the idea there is that you have a page, almost like a website, to represent the most important things about your brand. And if, in case you're wondering, why is it not just a regular website? And why do I need a micro website? Because that's the world we live in. And I think we have a podcast on the subject where we kind of dive in depth into the issue of why the link in bio pages are even a thing these days and what makes them different from the regular websites. But every business could benefit it from having a link in bio page, and you, an agency, a social media manager, offering that. That is, again, as I said, that's an extra profile for you to manage. There are all sorts of things that you could do with it. They're very similar to managing any other social profiles. You can post content to it. You can keep it updated. You can keep your client calendars on it. You can include integrations onto those pages, like collecting payments and booking appointments and feeding content from their other blogs and listings. So the sky is the limit with the link in bio pages, and great addition to a services that an agency can provide.
Yeah, and you mentioned the ability to say, let's say, like with real estate or mortgage, right? Where I'm a marketer that handles that specific brand, that real estate firm in a market, and they've got, I don't know, 50, 100 agents. Bio pages, awesome, great ad. The next one is like really advocacy. The fact that each one of those employees, like you said, they have a social presence. And if they're in a service base or a sales role, like those sort of profiles, their goal is to sell more. So let's talk a little bit about advocacy and how that can help kind of just, well, one, billable item, a lot more profiles, but also why an agencies or marketers are really primed to be the person to run an advocacy program for an organization.
Yeah, as first of all, the advocacy, I think, is again underutilized strategy. In many cases, it's not even part of a strategy at all for the business. So you, as an agency, you are seeing you have a customer, and the customer has employees, and that's untapped potential for the customer. So you'd be the one offering that customer this notion that, hey, these employees, especially if your customer has lots of employees, right? That's even a bigger potential. Hey, you could use their social presence to your benefit, and that's. We always talk about advocacy in a sense of sort of a bi-directional street, like it's a bi-directional flow. Your employees promote brands' messaging, but at the same time, brand also helps employees build their professional profile. So, and here you are as an agency, you're looking at all that and you're saying, hey, I have a client. They have, let's say, a few dozen employees. First of all, the client, the brand, could benefit from these employees sharing the company's message. Then, which something that you as an agency would facilitate as a service, as a billable item. And then the agency itself could then offer their employees this better, ever improving presence that they can have, right? And you will also be managing that part of the process, creating content that now employees can kind of share, not so much to promote the brand, but also to just kind of build their profiles. All of a sudden, you went from managing a single brand's profile. Now you could be managing multiples of them there. The way you could bill for that is probably just a fee for each employee on the management or something. But that just completely opens up the doors to something much, much bigger. And again, mind you, that the customer benefits in the end. So as we are discussing the revenue stream improvements for our agencies and whatnot, in the end, your customer benefits from boosted posts. Yes, it's a revenue stream for you, but at the same time, it's a performance boost for the customer. You have the link in bio pages. Again, just more presence for your customer. Agency advocacy, rather, is an improvement both in terms of the performance, in terms of the work culture, work environment. Everybody's sort of just involved and participating. So all these things, in the end, are beneficial to everybody. And it's almost like it's unexplored potential. It's unutilized potential. So by exploring that, everybody wins.
Yeah. And this is when you add value, right? Everything that we're talking about here is like you as an organization adding value to your client, helping them to achieve their goals. And when they see that, they're going to want more, right? That's the beauty of it. I want to kind of shift too into some integrations. I know that sometimes agency or marketers' clients have other tools they're working with, ClickUp, workflow management, asset management platforms that they use. And so being able to tie all this stuff together makes lives easier, but also starts giving people access to things that maybe didn't have access to so easily before, right?
Yeah. So I think depending on the particular client, level of sophistication in terms of what else is happening within the company, whether it's an HR platform, whether it's some sort of a content management system, or some sort of a communication tool like Teams or Slack. Obviously, connecting that part of their world to the social media and to the marketing efforts, whether it's there is a content that's created that needs to be approved, right? Or there is a content that we hope everybody in the company now engages with, or say they've posted an article on their blog and all of a sudden you want that kind of piece of content to be delivered straight into your, either even maybe get published automatically or at least kind of land itself in some sort of a repository within an SMM tool that you're using, so that way you can kind of go out and publish it. But the sky is truly the limit to what integrations can accomplish. And I think with a more sophisticated customer, by that I mean customer that uses other tools, and I think we see more and more of it. Even the smallest customers, they use, again, Slacks, Teams, Google Drives, and all of that could be easily interconnected. Again, a better SMM platform would offer you ways to connect all these apps, either through some sort of an API hook or Zapier or one of these kind of app connector tools out there. So I think that's another, perhaps more of a custom solution item, perhaps not something that you can maybe get going with right away quickly. You would still kind of need to do some analysis and some understanding of what the customer, but I think we should kind of at least plant this notion that keep an eye open on any kind of integration options and capability, because again, think of it also in terms of if your customer now is connected using an integration that you built to the tool of your choosing, like Vista, for example, as an SMM tool, that customer to some extent is now dependent on you that much more, right? And you've now built that stronger of a bond, which can then lead to more business, more stability of a relationship, and things like that.
And really just analyzing the pain points. I think that you said that right too, which is that's how you're going to uncover this. This one's probably going to be the one that takes as longest to analyze, research, and then put together an implementation plan. But it's really about understanding your customer's pain points and listening to those little nuances like, man, I'm a customer of a marketer or a social media manager. And it's like, man, like my photographer is always uploading things into Google Drive. And then I've got to go into the sharing settings and I got to share it with your team. And now your team's going to have to download that stuff and upload it into my SMM tool. Whereas an integration could simply just bridge that gap. Image, video gets dropped into Google Drive, boom, already on the calendar, right? Or something like that on the social media management tool.
And as we are sort of qualifying that as being something that sort of requires a little bit more research and whatnot, I think let's maybe not scare people too much. I think if you look at places like Zapier, right, it's really meant for a non-techie going in there and wanting to, let's say, connect your Gmail with an SMM tool. Literally send an email that ends up as a post or something. Upload an image to Google Drive that ends up in your media library in an SMM tool like Vista. And these things aren't meant for some high-end technologists, right? So anybody can go in and with a few clicks connect those two apps or three apps or whatever is the chain.
I think the research is like, can your SMM tool do that part of the connection? That's probably the only research you'll kind of really need to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or, shameless plug, check out vistasocial. I'm sure we can do it. I didn't add this to our list, but I thought of one before we started recording, which is brands. I mean, like, listen, we're in this space, and I'm going to say this, and people might not like it. We're in a space right now, I think, in 2024, where you could get canceled almost any second. As a brand, you say the wrong thing on social, whatever it is, there's an opportunity, there's a risk. And so I think that there's been this shift towards really leaning into what is my audience saying about me? How are they feeling about my customer service team, my product, the experience they have in my stores, whatever that might be. So being able to provide something like a sentiment analysis, right, over a period of time, helping them to discover potential PR crises before they even happen, that could be a pretty solid addition to an additional revenue stream for them too.
Yeah, and if you couple that with just a broad reputation management aspect of it, right, where you're tracking reviews, right, of your client on Google Business, on Facebook, on some other review sites, that is a service in and of itself. We're going to watch over your reviews. We're going to help you respond to them. We're going to identify the reviews that are super negative. But that's the review aspect of it, where people actually purposely go out and leave a review that is positive or negative, right? Those are trackable. And again, a better SMM platform would offer you review tracking as part of it. And again, that's a service to your customer. It's not managing social at that point. It's managing reputation.
Right.
But a step up from that would be to say that in those cases when the business's reviews aren't only rooted in Yelp or Google Business or Facebook, where they just ever present in comments or in mentions, positive or negative, right? Those are easily identifiable. Like they are certainly there within your inbox, within your favorite SMM tool,
Right.
but are they classified? Are they sort of qualified as being negative, positive? Can they be systematically identified? Can they be placed in a report? Can your customer be then presented with a summary of everything positive or negative that sort of is out there? So I think reputation management would focus on sentiment. And I'm sort of making that distinction. Perhaps it's not very important distinction because it seems like it's all sort of in the same sort of space. But I think reviews are a little bit more of an integrated, easier to identify in many cases, versus sentiment analysis is now, let's actually understand what people say in comments. It's not a review, it's their commentary, it's their expression of thought or opinion. Can you analyze that? So you're absolutely right. I mean, any business would want to know what people think of them, and they could be easily, repairable issues, right? That just if they go unnoticed, they propagate and they linger.
Worse.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it's like it goes back to the value, right? Like if you, as a social media manager, get to identify a trend. Let's say people are commenting about your product and they're saying that they're having a hard time setting up this IKEA desk that just got released, right? Like you get to then bring that up to the client in a report and say, hey, listen, overall pretty good sentiment. We're seeing it increase over the last couple of months. Seeing a trend here that your team might want to identify or might want to review strategy around. That goes without saying. That is a huge value to the organization.
Absolutely. And I think again, it's really under, when people think about social media, I think they're focused mostly on what it gives them in terms of engagement or visibility or awareness, but they perhaps not appreciating the fact that it also be quite a
almost a liability at times.
Liability, but also it could cause harm if things kind of go unnoticed, the trends or the complaints or certain sort of perhaps not so positive emotions. So having a handle on them and having a system in place that is advantageous to the business, but for again kind of taking it back to additional revenue streams, reputation management in broader terms coupled with sentiment analysis is a no-brainer to offer to your customers. And with a decent tool in place that does all that, you already have it. You just sort of package it into something that's valuable to your customer.
Almost shifting into PR, I guess, at that point, but that's sure. And by the way, if you guys aren't watching on YouTube, you missed. The second I mentioned possible cancellation on social, you should have seen Vitaly's face. He almost froze for a second. Like, Reggie, what are you about to say? We're going to have to cut that out. So make sure you go back on YouTube and watch this episode. But thanks again for listening, and we appreciate you guys. If you have any other ideas, I know we went through 5 ideas for marketers and social media managers to add revenue streams. If you think of any other ideas, make sure you leave that as a comment on any of the platforms you're consuming this podcast on. If you have any thoughts on episode ideas, anything that you want us to cover, or if you want to come join Vitaly and I on a future episode, make sure to head over to vistasocial.com/podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.